Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closure Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. And today's episode, I want to go through a unique situation that one of my coaching students just recently experienced. I meant to do this a couple weeks ago, but with travel and cold, finally getting around to it now. But it's something I think you guys should all keep in mind if you're buying performing or non-performing notes, or especially if you're buying contract for deeds, specifically in Pennsylvania. Okay, now I've bought plenty of contract for deeds. I mean, we have bought hundreds and hundreds of contract for deeds over the years. Our students have bought a lot of contract for deeds, performing and non-performing. I bought in Pennsylvania before, liquidated what we had there before, sold it off or foreclosed, took the property back, stuff like that. But this situation is an interesting scenario. And to set the stage a little bit, what's going on with this, one of my coaching students bought a chunk of performing and some non-performing contract for deeds, and they included this one asset as one contract for deed in Pennsylvania. It's performing. Okay. Now, if you don't know what a contract for deed is, it's still a lending, it's still a mortgage product, basically. But what happens is it's not financed like traditional. Like, you're not going to jump through hoops filling out a 1003 application. It's not really credit based. Most of them are pretty much 20 or 30-year mortgages at 9.9% approximately. And the deed stays in the name of the seller until the borrower who's on the contract pays off, right? And what's different about contract for deeds is some states treat them as mortgages, others treat them as like a tenant relationship. And that's kind of the advantage of a contract for deed in states like Alabama, which has a 1-year redemption on a mortgage, versus a contract for deed where you can evict. If the borrower doesn't pay, you evict and then take the property back and go forth. Well, in Pennsylvania, they treat it, you could also evict it, okay? But, Pennsylvania is a relatively faster foreclosure state anyway. But in this situation, my student, he bought this note from another previous coaching student. He's bought 500 notes, closing down a fund, looking to move. And they bought this note. It's a contract for deed at 8.99%, 30 years, performing note. And the borrower was escrowing taxes and insurance. Okay. And my student was pretty excited about it. He was going to pay 17, I believe, is what he was finally going to pay. Actually, I've got the information here. Yeah. Yeah, he paid basically $17,000 for this note, this performing note, with a balance of $38,000. And it was going to be a pretty good yield to him at that. He's buying it less than 50 cents on the dollar, just under it. The property's worth a whole lot more. It was performing for a period of time. And there's about $6,000 in escrow, taxes and insurance account, with a servicer that needed to be paid towards the beginning of the year for the property taxes, right? So what happened? So my student closes on it. Everything gets transferred. The servicing has a little bit of a hiccup, like the seller went out of town on a hunting trip, didn't communicate effectively with the servicing company. His servicing company about the note being sold, so it took a little while long for service to be transferred. It gets transferred, but the taxes and insurance going to get transferred over in a timely fashion to pay the taxes and insurance. So it now shows that the borrower is behind on this. And my student's like, well, do I pay the taxes? Told by my servicing company, which is FCI, which is just not the easiest to deal with, that I need to get this over. They're not going to give me credit for it. It's like, no, they'll give you credit for it. You should probably go ahead and advance the $6,000 to pay the taxes and insurance. Because if the borrower's paid it, it'll advance now. It'll get taken care of in the transfer. Sure enough, it's supposed to. Well, what happens is that the new FCI sends a statement to the borrower saying, hey, you're behind on your escrow. Well, they know that they've paid their escrow. So they get upset. They contact the previous seller. He's kind of MIA for about a month, hunting, doing other things, not really timely about responding. Well, this borrower goes and files a complaint with the attorney general that, hey, my $6,000 is missing. I paid this. It didn't help that my current student was like, you need to pay. Well, he didn't pay it in a timely fashion. Plus, turns out that there was a $1,500 fee too that is now grandfathered in that needs to be paid to the city for the septic inspection. Okay. And we also know that the previous seller didn't pay that when he bought it beforehand. Well, when he bought it, it may have not been required. Let me clarify that. He held on to this for a couple of years. In the last couple of years, state of Pennsylvania is required, or the state of Philadelphia, where this is nearby, has required this septic inspection and this fee to go. So anytime the property is transferred, ownership, $50 fee. So we argued first with the city that, hey, this fee, it's not really changing ownership because it's the same borrower in the property. It is changing LLCs. Well, they said, nope, it's got to be paid regardless. Well, then my student reaches out and says, well, we need you to pay this because you're the owner of the property and it needs inspection by the city, which I told him you're going to have to pay it. He still went ahead and did it. It's okay. Not a big deal. Still going to be a great deal for him, right? I think she gets a little upset about that too. In the contract for deed, it literally reads that the borrower will be responsible for fees. So he's not outside his right to ask that borrower to pay that, right? Totally makes sense. You've been living in the house for a few years. You're responsible for the septic tank. You've been paying the sewage and stuff like that. It is unfortunate transferred and it's due to this cause, but it is what it is. Well, she's upset. She contacts the attorney general. The attorney general looks into it and finds out that since it's a lower balance, right? $38,000 balance is what's technically owed right now. Oh, wait a second. This is a contract for deed. And since it was below a $50,000 amount, it violates, get this, it violates the specific law that Philadelphia or Pennsylvania has for balances, mortgages below $50,000. Okay. Let me read this specifically to you so I'm not misquoting, okay? Basically, it violates the loan interest and protection law, okay? Basically stating that there is a maximum lawful interest rate that you can charge borrowers on mortgages below $50,000, at $50,000 and below, okay? So I'm not going to read through the whole law with you, okay? But this dates back to October 5th of 1978 when it first came out, okay? And if you think about 1978, interest rates were a lot higher. So I don't know how this got passed and been voted down. But anyway, in maximum lawful interest rate states in here is Section 201 of the law. Maximum lawful interest rate is, except as provided in Article 3 of this act, the maximum lawful rate of interest for this loan or for the loan or use of money in an amount of $50,000 or less in all cases where no express contract shall have been made for a less rate shall be 6% per annum. That's the highest you can charge is 6%. Now, the maximum lawful rate of interest set forth in this section shall not apply to an obligation to pay a sum of money in an original bona fide principal amount of more than $50,000. It was $50,000 and $1. Okay. An unsecured, non-collateralized loan in excess of $35,000 or business loans of any principal amount. Okay. All right. Exceptions. Let's go roll down to Article 3. The exceptions to maximize the lawful interest rate. Residential mortgage interest rate. The General Assembly hereby finds that it is necessary and appropriate to establish a flexible maximum lawful interest rate for residential mortgages as defined in this act, and further finds that the monthly index of long-term United States government bond yields is the appropriate basis in which such a maximum rate of interest may be established. Okay, it's ridiculous. So here's what: no consideration of the investor, no consideration that this is probably a subprime borrower for the most part when it bought it, that the investor is at the risk aspect of this when this was created, because they didn't do, when this was created from Harbor Portfolio originally, the borrower bought it as is. They financed them 20% at 8.99% interest. All right. That does not seem high considering where rates are at now, but also considering when rates were back then. You know what I mean? It just seems ridiculous. Anyway, so here is what they said. Okay. I'm going to read the exact email that the Attorney General's rep sent my student. Dear blank, we have completed the initial evaluation of the situation related to the property in Greenville, PA, and have concluded that the agreement for deed promissory note originally between a property management and the borrower, okay, that you purchased from a blank company with respect to the address contain an interest rate of 8.99%, which violates the Pennsylvania Loan Interest and Protection Law, copy which is attached. The interest rate for this loan should be no higher, get this, no higher than 4.75%. Okay. The maximum rate in which rate in the month in which it was instituted in accordance with the loan interest and protection law. Isn't that freaking ridiculous? That's just stupid. Okay. The Attorney General PA's authority to enforce the loan interest and protection law attached are two decisions. Okay. That they if you require further information, we're going to have to provide it. But the contract you purchased with respect contains interest rates that are in a blatant violation of the loan interest law. We recommend that in future you check with a lawyer conversant to Pennsylvania law before purchasing notes relating to properties located in Pennsylvania. See, I don't get that. That just doesn't make any sense on that aspect of things. Okay. If the maximum lawful rate of 4.75 has been used instead of 8.99, then the outstanding principal balance on the loan right now would be approximately $6,000. Doesn't talk about the fact that she was behind at one point and didn't pay for a while. And so the documents by the seller indicate that it's approximately $38,000. Now they reached out, the Attorney General reached out to the previous seller as well, said, hey, you're the owner of this. We need to see all of the service. Well, it's unfortunate too that the servicing company that they were with went out of business a couple years back. So he had to move it to a different company. But back in 2023, his servicing company went out of business and screwed a lot of stuff up. Like there's years missing. They just literally overnight went out of business. The loans got transferred out of live, but there's not a lot of payment history for a period of like 12 to 24 months. Okay. Let's go through this. Okay. Let's see here. There may be other violations of Pennsylvania law in connection with the promissory note. We'll raise them at a later date if necessary. The borrower reported to us today they have contacted that you have contacted her seeking to require her to pay certain local annual fees assessed against property owners in the county. We cannot find anywhere in the agreement for deed or promissory note, which is a blatant lie. There's a complete section in there that the borrower is responsible for fees. Okay. Any fee that you seek to charge under this loan must be specified in the loan documents, or should not be charged. What was outlined? Any other thing was a general thing on that. Well, this new septic system thing, inspection fee by the city, was actually added just a couple years ago. It wasn't when it was originally the loan was created. Okay. Now here's a great thing. The borrower has reported to us that she wishes to sell the property. This might be a way to solve the situation. It is our understanding that you purchased the agreement for $17,000 from the seller. If you would agree to cooperate with her efforts to sell the property and agree to a payoff amount of no more than $22,000. We're just going to take $38,000 and drop it down to $22,000. We know you paid $17,000, and so they literally say in here, this amount is the $17,000 you paid for plus $5,000 for transaction costs. We would be comfortable to not pursue the matter relating to this borrower. This will allow her to sell the property and you to recoup your investment in the property without litigation. We're also interested in another note that you bought from the same seller for a different amount as well. Okay. This is just crazy. It's just ridiculously stupid that, oh, we're going to drop it down to, now they did ask for servicing and he provided what he had. So, there's some time missing. Well, yeah, she was once non-performing. She didn't pay on time the entire time. I know this because I know the seller, when he bought it, I went back and found what he paid for it, and she wasn't behind. She was behind by like 2 or 3 years. And the seller was able to modify and keep it. Now, what would solve this issue? Well, if the seller had converted this to a mortgage above $50,000, that would have solved it. You know what I mean? Maybe given a little money converted to a $51,000 mortgage, because the value is, I think, at 70, if I remember correctly on this. Okay. It's not the greatest house, but that would offset this since it falls above that $50,000 mark. Dropping the interest rate down, changing it from 8.99% to probably 6% would have solved it, because it would have eliminated the contract for deed and turned it into a mortgage, and that would have been a different thing and a different balance. Selling the property, if the borrower sells the property, he gets paid, he's still going to make money. $5,000 on a $17,000 investment is a pretty good day, especially if it takes less than a year. He really was buying it for the cash flow. That was going to be about an 18 to 19% cash flow to him, but that's not going to work out now. So, yeah, my student's a little irritated with it there. He's just like, I'm not going to buy a contract for deeds in Pennsylvania anymore. I would agree to the same thing, especially the low balance stuff. He used his own money, didn't use somebody else's money. So that's the nice thing with that aspect of things. But this happens every once in a while. I mean, you're going to have things. I've had the CFPB reach out to me before when we were foreclosing on a couple borrowers who weren't making payments, or they made a payment and we returned it. And they said we accepted it, which we didn't. We just returned it to them because they were so far behind. We didn't want to accept just 1 month of payment to reset the statute of limitations. I just think it's outdated law in there, especially when you look at interest rates and 4.87. That's just ridiculous. Even back in whenever the loan was originating. I don't remember when the loan was originating. I think it was like early 2000s. I think 2009, 10, if I remember correctly. But still, to just completely cut him out from that, I told my students, well, you could always return it back to the seller. And the seller's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So it is what it is. Making $5,017 is better than nothing, better than stick in the eye. If the lady sells it, and that's what I said. I said, reach out to the borrower, see if she'd be willing to find out if she's looking to sell it, figure out that situation. Or you could always say about refinancing it, putting it into a traditional mortgage and giving her a little cash. But then he would have to come out of pocket some money to do that, to give her like a cash out refi. But the house is not in bad condition. It's not the greatest, but trying to sell it, trying to move it, it's probably the best thing that he could do on that aspect of things. So if you're an investor out there looking at contract for deeds in Pennsylvania that are below $50,000 when they originated, I would just say no to them. Okay, stick to higher valued assets. I mean, this house is over $50,000. It's just, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-story house, brick house, not a bad looking house. The unfortunate thing is, the taxes did get paid. That finally the taxes transferred over and those got paid. That took a little bit of a while, but that's one of the things you got to watch out for. If the taxes had transferred over appropriately, or they've been paid in advance in a timely fashion, could my student have kept getting payments on this? Would the attorney general never stepped in? Yeah, the attorney general's too busy to be going after individual deals. But what happens when somebody gets mad, gets upset, and raises a flag about some things, and there was obviously like, hey, I paid $6,000, where's my $6,000? Of course the attorney general's gonna step in. I'm not saying they did anything wrong in that aspect of things. The seller should have been a lot more responsive, should have made sure that $6,000 got transferred over in the servicing transfer. But it is what it is. So it's one thing you may want to just put that in your list not to buy, or something to watch out for when you're buying contract for deeds in Pennsylvania. Take a look at those things, make sure it doesn't violate anything. Last thing you want is some bar getting mad and reporting you to the attorney general, and then now they come and they have to look at everything in your portfolio, or look at doing a deeper dive and stuff. I mean, years ago, Harbor Portfolio did get kicked out of the state of Pennsylvania for creating these things, although I don't understand why they would get kicked out. They're actually doing the county favor. 8.9, 9.99% is not a bad rate for a subprime borrower to own or finance a property. But this is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I find the thing that's frustrating is them determining what your value is, what your interest rate is. That's the thing that pisses me off. And that's probably my biggest cause for not wanting to buy in Pennsylvania. It is what it is. That's my opinion. That and a cup of coffee $4 might get you a cup of coffee somewhere. But as you guys out there, this is not the only time I've heard this happening to somebody as well, too, doing a little deeper dive. So just avoid it. Or if you're going to buy it, just go look to convert it to a mortgage, especially if it's over $50,000. If it's under 50, just say no to it and move on to something else. All right. So keep that in mind when you're buying a contract for deed or originating a contract for deed in Pennsylvania. You don't want to be violating state law. I actually talked to a couple attorneys about that, and they hadn't heard anything about this, which is kind of funny. So one of those obscure laws written in 1978 that sometimes pops up when people not accuse anybody of doing anything wrong. It just dragged out, and then people should have been a little bit more responsive. That's all. Been there, done that, had that happen as well. So hope you find that episode interesting. Keep in mind, buying mortgages, hey, that's totally different. But stick to mortgages that are above $50,000. Most of the time, you're not going to see a mortgage anyway. Traditional mortgage originate below $100,000 anyway. It just becomes too costly. That's another thing that is aggravating. Is it's completely consumer driven. It's not anything about business driven. Originating a note under $100,000 is costly enough. Those low interest rates make it even more harder to make money on those low balance, and they're really harming honestly the community there, because there is a lower value assets that people don't want to touch for this reason alone. Okay. If you're an originator and you're wanting to owner finance stuff there, based on the costs and then the Fannie Mae regulations when it comes that you're originating. If you're originating a mortgage, you can only be like up to 4% of the original sales price. That's hard to make money in that neck of the woods, especially if you're going to run everybody through an RMLO. Even though there's a flat fee with that, but it still cuts into a lot of stuff when it comes to when you're ordering title and taxes and all that other good stuff there for you. So hopefully you guys learn, don't buy in the Pennsylvania state contract for deeds at a low balance. That's what we want to take away from this episode. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at talkwithscottcarson.com. As always, you can book a call there at talkwithscottcarson.com if you're looking at a deal. Always glad to kind of help you walk you through that process. And always, guys, don't forget we do have our monthly membership at $97 a month. That's very, very valuable to get you looking at new deals as well. So go out, take some action, and we'll see you at the top. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Hey, real estate investors. My name is Scott Carson. I'm known across the country as the Note Guy. And as somebody who's been a real estate investor living in the Lone Star State for over 20 years now, I often get questions from people looking to invest in Texas, whether they live here in Texas or they live outside of the Lone Star State. Where do we find our distressed leads? Where do we find our foreclosure list? And the number one source is Roddy's List. This list has been around for 20 plus years. George Roddy over here, smiling face, is a friend, and his source for foreclosures on residential or commercial properties, the sheriff's list, the struck off list, is second to none because it's just focused on Texas. And if you're looking for Texas deals, which is the fastest state to foreclose in, then you definitely want to check out Roddy's List. You can go to Foreclosure Listing Service, is what it's known for, flsonline.com. If you use the code WeCloseNotes, that's right, WeCloseNotes, it'll get you $20 off your order, whether you're ordering a foreclosure list in Dallas County or Harris County or Travis County or Bexar County, whatever county you're looking in or whatever source list you're trying to buy from them, that'll get you $20 off of the price. Can't beat that. It's a great resource. We use it all the time to find distressed notes, banks with bad debt, private investors who are foreclosing, private individuals who are foreclosing on assets, and also potential REOs for us to purchase or our students to buy. So make sure you check it out at flsonline.com. That's flsonline.com. or foreclosure.info as well. But make sure you tell them that Scott sent you. Use the discount code, once again, WeCloseNotes, to get your $20 off. Hey, real estate investors, this is Scott Carson. I'm known across the country as the Note Guy. For the past 20 years, I've been buying distressed assets, primarily non-performing notes on residential commercial properties. And if you've ever wanted to learn how to dive in to start buying non-performing notes from banks, hedge funds, or other investors like yourself, then there's no greater place than to get the nuts and bolts, the A to Z, the 1 through 99 place to get started. It is our virtual note buying workshop. We've been teaching this class since 2010 on how to find, fund, flip non-performing notes, how to get banks to call you with deals that you can cherry pick. And no, you don't need millions. No, you don't need a lot of experience to start looking at non-performing notes. We get the lists of notes from banks, hedge funds on a regular basis, not one or two or three or four, but hundreds of deals that we can evaluate and cherry pick. Whether we're looking for performing notes or non-performing notes that we can get reperforming, or non-performing notes you can foreclose and take back, whatever your niche or whatever you would like to focus on, we can help make it happen at the virtual note buying workshop. It's a 3-day class. Our next one is April 18th to the 20th. It's actually online live via Zoom. You get signed up by going to notebuyingfordummies.com. That's notebuyingfordummies.com. Day one is all about how to find these assets. How do you find asset managers? How do you find lists of people to reach out to that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on postcards or letters that you waste money on? We don't do that. Day two is all about raising capital and marketing and how to create a business that feeds itself, that you can do part-time, 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, depending on what your focus is. We'll show you a game plan to achieve deal flow coming in on autopilot versus you having to send a ton of money. And also, we'll show you how to raise capital like nobody else does. And then day three is all about the flip. How do we structure deals? How do we evaluate a tape to find the deals from the duds? All right. We'll show you what vendors to use. We'll give you a 200+ page manual, contracts, sample forms, all the stuff that you need to be a lean, mean note buying machine when you get wrapped up. Now, yes, this is live April 18th through the 20th online via Zoom. Get signed up today. We'll send you the replays of the previous online workshop so you can start learning, start evaluating material, and get rock and rolling. And if for some reason You don't like our class? We have 100% money back guarantee involved with it. If at the end of the first day, you don't like what we talk about, you don't think it's impactful, just let me know. We'll refund back your tuition, no questions asked. We don't want your money. We want you to become a note buyer. We want you to become a lien lord. All right. Like I said, if you're tired of dealing with toilets, tenants, and trash outs, you don't want to deal with renters, then becoming a note investor is the path for you. Everybody evolves into a note investor at some point, but there are plenty of opportunities out there. There are millions of non-performing notes that you can cherry pick. No, it's not all junk. It can be small value all the way up to $1 million homes or $1 million apartments for you. So much opportunity is taking place right now in the chaotic market that we see. And who's going to come out on top? Note investors will. So take the time, get signed up today, April 18th to 20th. Go to notebuyingfordummies.com or go to our website, weclosenotes.com, and sign up for the virtual workshop there. As always, get signed up today. We run discounts all the time. The cost of tuition is you plus your partner or spouse. So get signed up today at notebuyingfordummies.com, and we'll see you at the top.